2, 3, go.
Hey everybody, it's Aram Banyan.
Timothy Bennett here.
Welcome to B&B Banter Bros.
And this is episode 13.
13, take 2.
Take 2.
After an unfortunate incident.
Yep.
So we recorded this already, but it got corrupted or got lost somewhere along the way. We're not really sure what happened, but...
Yeah, it happens. I mean... It sucks when it happens, and I'm glad that we weren't making money off this or anything. But
the computer thought the episode wasn't good enough, so it told us to redo it.
Yep, and you know what? I'm gonna listen to the computer.
Sometimes it's right.
So yeah, this is round 2, but we've kind of prepared ourselves a little bit better, and we have less distractions than what happened last time too. Yeah. So my 1.5-year-old son was
he made a guest appearance towards the end.
Yes, he did. So
and then didn't leave.
And it made me run after him in the middle of this. So now that the kid's not here,
house is empty. It's just us.
Yep. So and we're fresh up on our tunes. So let's talk about what we're gonna do today. Well, first of all, Aram, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. You know, I'm up, kicking around. I'm not super sore.
Right.
So
yeah, we're actually doing a morning podcast instead of a late podcast.
We're seeing how much better it works if we do it in the morning.
Right. Me and Aram have this theory that after a long day at work or just a long day in general, and we get a couple beers in us, it might not be as coherent or clear as we maybe want it to be.
We're basically worried that at the end of the long day, we're just fried to the point where we're not doing as good a job as we should be.
Yeah, our pistons aren't firing in all cylinders at that point, and so we wanted to try to do a couple mornings to see if maybe that works a little bit better.
Just give them a shot.
Yeah, maybe our minds are a little more on peak. So today we are going to do music. We're talking about music. So we're wrapping it back around to music, and we were doing concept albums.
Yep.
So me and Aaron both have a list of concept albums that we, I guess, listened to or liked that we wanted to talk about. And if you're not familiar what a concept album is, it's when a group or an artist creates an overall theme to their music, to the whole album. Mm-hmm. So we'll kind of talk about that. And then we're also going to talk about the album, and that's the first thing we'll probably do. Talk about the album that we listened to from our last one, which was Kacey Musgraves' Golden Hour.
Yep.
So, and then we'll obviously do our random shuffle songs, and then we'll go on our merry way after that, probably.
Yep.
So,
you boys got to work. So.
Yep. So let's get going. Let's get into it. So,
Golden Hour by Kacey Musgraves.
Yes. Let's throw a little facts at you first.
Yeah.
So, Kacey Musgraves' Golden Hour was released in March 30th, 2018. So it's not that old of an album.
Nope.
No,
not at all.
It's
barely
fresh. 2, yeah. And
surprised they're not pulling more singles off of that to put on the radio.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it has, according to what this is saying, it has 5 singles: Butterflies, Space Cowboy, High Horse, Slow Burn, and Rainbow. And
I understand that 2 of those could be singles. The other ones I don't feel like should have been the singles. Yeah,
I definitely feel like one of those could definitely be a single for sure, because I've heard it way before I even knew that this was an album. Like, I had Slow Burn on my playlist for at least a good year.
Yeah, I mean, Slow Burn sounds like a single.
Yep.
And like the first 3 don't to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I could kind of see Butterflies being, I mean, it's the number 1 right there. So, but I don't know.
Society's got an odd obsession with fucking butterflies. I don't know.
Well, so I mean, that's what I have to say about that. Kind of give you a little bit of facts. She's considered to be she's what is known as a neo-traditional country artist, which means that she has a blend of pop, folk, country, and a little bit of alternative blending into one sound, and that's kind of what that neo-traditional. She's taken a lot of...
Which you definitely hear in various stages of this album.
Yeah, a couple of the songs for sure. Like I think Slow Burn has probably the most folky influence to it. I swear, I was just telling Aram this before we started the podcast that I feel like she must have been a big influence of hers was
Nicks and Fleetwood Mac.
Fleetwood Mac, because
and until you said something, I wouldn't have even thought it, because I mean that's just not they're not my style either. So I mean, knowing what I do of Fleetwood Mac and the little that I do, I could definitely see it.
Yeah, they just have that kind of, for the time, Fleetwood Mac had that kind of folkier, indie kind of rock influence, alternative rock influence. So, I mean, I kind of hear it in a lot of their stuff. But she's definitely poppy too.
Yep.
And one thing I will say about the album that is quite impressive and that I probably like the most is for her trying to be more of a influence of like a pop country artist. She does a really excellent job at blending those sounds together. Right. Like you have the distinctive, you can tell this is pop, this is folk, this is country, this is whatever. I mean, like you can really tell in each song very clearly. But one thing that stays consistent is her vocals. She doesn't change her vocals too much.
Right.
And it's not necessarily too boring. You know, she doesn't have like a wide dynamic or wide range in her vocals, but it's very appropriate for the songs that she's writing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'll preface anything I say about this album with, it's not my style. Yeah. I listened to it. I tried to give it a shot. It had some songs I enjoyed.
Yep.
It's not my style. So.
Hey, I mean, you gave it a go at least.
Yeah. I mean, I tried. And like I said, I fully admit there's at least one or two songs that I enjoy on this album.
Which is probably more than you thought.
Yeah. Well, considering when you first said it and I hadn't even put together, like when we first announced it on the last episode and you told me the name, I automatically assumed it was just a straight country album, and I was already dreading it.
Yeah, I think your instant thing is like, oh, great.
Yeah, it was, oh, Christ.
Yep.
So, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I think she has a wonderful voice.
She's easy on the eyes, too.
Yeah, and I think the most interesting part is I always found, like, and we discussed this, I think, before, like, the slide guitar. Mm-hmm. I find slides very interesting when they're incorporated well.
Yeah.
Would that I could find more metal bands that could include a slide, but
might be a little tough.
Yeah, it would be tough.
They definitely fit a particular genre.
But like blues artists and stuff like that can include a slide, I always find their music to be very interesting.
Well, it depends on the kind of slide you're talking about, because you can have a slide on a regular guitar, which is used a lot. In fact, in A Perfect Circle's Judith, he uses a slide.
I suppose I have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, he uses a slide and a part of that song, so it can be used. But then what you're talking about is a slide guitar.
I think both are interesting. Like I've seen bands. I went and saw a band called Watermelon Slim and the Workers, and
that sounds very racy.
It was. Yeah, it was this old dude. Like he used to be a trucker, and he's the front man for this band, and he plays a slide guitar, but like he also has slides and he plays harmonica. Mm-hmm. It was a killer
kind
show.
Of a one-man show.
Well, no, he's got a full band with him, but like he plays all these different things, like, and sings at the same time.
I think that's pretty impressive.
But I'll play him for you sometime. He's pretty cool. I think he's like a member of Mensa too, which was interesting.
I don't think I know what that is.
Mensa?
Yeah.
Oh, if you look at it, it was basically it's kind of like a smart person club. That's the simplest way to well,
that's why I haven't heard of it.
Right. We're not invited.
No.
But yeah, so
I'm what they call street smarts. I have to work really hard to be book smart.
I don't claim to be smart in anything. Like I'm a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah. I feel that too, but I consider myself to be more street aware. Mm-hmm. I don't even like to call it street smarts because it's not really smart. It's more you experience it. You figure shit out, and that to me is more knowledge. Yeah. It's wisdom. So I'm more street-wise
That's the old Kevin Smith bit. Like I didn't grow up on the street. I grew up on a street.
Yeah. I can't remember who said that. Something was, I went into projects. It's like, that's not a finished thing. It's still on the go. It's still working. It's like, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's
get into it.
So I think we can kind of push through these songs. So Slow Burn is the first track in Golden Hour. This is my favorite track by a long shot for me. It's definitely like, it's the one that was on my playlist. I super enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I think that the tone of the song is a kind of a slower, mellower pace, and it has the most folky indie sound of a blend that you can get together. You can kind of hear like there might be a little bit of a country swing to it, but for the most part, it sounds a lot more of a folky indie song. And lyrically, I think that it's a pretty appropriate song lyrically too. So
yeah, I remember I probably just didn't give this enough of a try because I automatically assumed it was about a boy, and I just like went with it. Yeah, but listening back to it, listening to the lyrics, like we listened to a little bit beforehand, I can definitely see where it's not. It's more of a broader picture. Like she's just talking about life in general.
Yep.
So I mean, I can definitely have more respect for the song. I still like. I hate that warble she does on the chorus. I don't know why it bugs me. It's not audibly pleasing to me. So.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the song has more of the, hey, life is life. We're gonna live it, but you don't need to rush through everything. Kind of accept things and embrace things a little bit more, and maybe you'll have more of an appreciation for the life you have. Because I mean, in the chorus, she's like, "I'm all right with a slow burn, taking my time, let the world turn." I mean, that right there to me goes, yeah, just kick back and enjoy life a little more.
Yeah,
do what you got to do and get through it. Second song is A Lonely Weekend, and me and you both agree that it was a good song. Yeah. It definitely had more of a poppier, upbeat.
Yeah, perfectly sound. Listenable.
Yep.
Like it's not gonna change the world in any way, shape, or form, but it's perfectly listenable. It's a fine song.
Yep. And I think we were talking about that the chorus. When you reach up to the chorus, you have these nice tom rolls on the drums, and it leads into what you said sounds like it belongs to a montage to some kind of romantic comedy movie. And I definitely, after listening to it again, I could totally see that. I can agree. It definitely the song sounds like it belongs in the soundtrack of some kind of romantic comedy. Some kind of hopeless in love, girl who's just isolated and alone and she doesn't know why. And so...
Yeah, that's probably the most memorable part of that song for me is like when I heard it again, I went, that's a montage. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's next?
Butterflies, which Aram has a little bit of a grudge against.
That's a very heavy-handed metaphor, and I think personally speaking, the world has way too much of a hard-on for butterflies. Not that they're not pretty, but I mean, they're not the only thing that's pretty. Like, you don't have to put a butterfly on fucking everything.
Yeah, I mean, people love that the metaphor that it brings, the metamorphosis of what the butterflies go through, transitioning to one thing to another. But I think what
they don't get is a lot of insects do that.
Yeah, well, yeah,
ants do that.
Snakes. I mean, snakes shed its skin every so often, and it's a new thing.
Exactly.
So. I definitely agree, but because they're pretty, which, to be honest, I don't think butterflies are all that pretty. I think they can be.
Some can be. Not all. Like the monarch butterfly, which is probably the most common one you see because it's orange.
Yep, and spotted.
And that it's not that pretty.
Nope. And I also feel like there are some of those exotic-looking butterflies. Those are the ones, like bright-colored butterflies, for sure.
There's like a moth that, like, when it spreads its wings, it actually is the face of an owl, and that's its camouflage. That's cool.
Kaylee loves that moth. She likes moths for some reason. She's weird. She even has a tattoo on her leg of a moth.
That is weird.
Yep. She also has a mug. It's full of moths. So I don't know.
She's drinking moths.
She's fucking weird. Love her to death, but she's fucking weird. But then she sees a moth in real life. She's like, "Oh, get it away!
Kill it! Kill it!"
Right? No, I don't. She's not quite that girly.
Not yet.
Yeah, I will say though, you did think it was pretty impressive how she used the word
she wrote chrysalis into the song.
Yep.
I have to give her credit for that because I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Right? I don't know if I would have been able to.
It probably would have taken me years if I had had the idea to put it in the song. It'd have taken me years to fucking write it in a way that made it work.
Yeah, she definitely makes it work. It's very appropriate, and it goes, "I was hiding in doubt till you brought me out of my chrysalis, and I came out new, all because of you." Now, first of all, butterflies can't be forced out of their cocoons.
Right.
They have to go through that transition.
They have to emerge on their own.
Yep. Otherwise, they would probably die.
Yeah.
So.
And then they can't be touched.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Can't touch a butterfly.
If you touch a butterfly's wings, it ruins it. They can't fly after that.
Oh, is it like because of how delicate they are?
The oils, the oils and stuff on the wings like get fucked up.
Don't touch butterflies anyway.
Right.
It's not cool, man. They have feelings too. Haven't you ever watched Bug's Life?
She wasn't really a central character to that movie.
No, but I'm saying insects have feelings.
Yeah, insects. I thought you were saying butterflies. It's like the butterfly wasn't really the main thrust of that movie.
No, he was a giant caterpillar that had little wings. Oh, no. Way to go, Aram. Way to go. Making a bunch of ruckus.
At least the can was empty.
Thank you. So, that was Butterflies. Track 3. Now let's go to 4. Oh, What a World.
Yeah.
I like the song. I mean, I think both agreed that we thought this was a pretty decent song.
Yeah.
And this was the one that you
starts
said,
like a Daft Punk album.
Yeah. Definitely modern song.
Yeah.
So like the last couple songs, you can definitely tell it was more of her like style that they were kind of going for. Especially Butterflies.
It had a lot more guitar and like country and indie sort of feel to them.
Yep.
This one definitely thrust itself way into modern.
And it was definitely a lot more electronics. In fact, I think this is a song that I was telling you about the whole drums.
Yeah, we got talking about drums for a bit.
I kind of went on a pop drum engineering thing where pretty much the bass, they used a real drum kit and a real drummer, and then they kind of layered it with some digital stuff. So they brought the kick bass and they brought that up to make it more of a boom, which is more of a pop sound, electronic pop sound too. And then they added their snare snap. They added a digital or a synth snare to add a fuzziness to that snap. And they just kind of layered that and blended it. And it definitely works, though. It's a good song. I liked it. Lyrically, I think it was okay. I didn't think it was anything I would go life-changing or profound, but it was good. The tune was definitely pretty decent, but I agree. Right away, it sounds like
because it's like it's vocals, but it's very very digitized, and I was like, what the hell is happening right now?
Yep.
It's definitely a sharp turn from what she'd been doing.
Yeah, definitely. All of a sudden, you're like, "Oh, this is different."
Yeah.
So,
what's next?
Mother. Track 5.
Sweet little song.
Yeah, it's like only a minute and 18 seconds.
You said. Yeah.
Definitely has a meaning behind it, and I definitely will say that I liked that meaning. The song itself was okay. It was a slower song.
Yep.
And the song itself was okay. The melody and tune and whatnot. But it just to me, it sounded like she had more of an appreciation for mothers or a mother or something like.
Definitely.
I didn't necessarily, because I didn't read the lyrics. I didn't necessarily, full grasp of what she was talking about. But something to me just says she has some appreciation or respect for her mother or a mother or mother types.
It sounds like it might have been a broader. Sorry, I'm yawning. I've only been up for like an hour, so. It sounds like it was more of a broader stroke to all mothers for part of I feel like she probably did both. She probably started talking about hers and then went into mothers in general.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
But I liked it.
Yeah.
Especially because it just was a quick song. Then we have Love is a Wild Thing, which this was another song that I think was more modern sounding. And I don't think I really cared too much for it. I didn't think it was anything special.
I think we were both kind of on the same page. Like, it was like, meh.
Definitely nothing that really...
Nothing bad to say about it, but nothing really great to contribute to it either.
Yep. I will say that there are a couple lines in the song that I liked for her verse, which was running like a river, trying to find the ocean, flowers in the concrete, climbing over fences, blooming in the shadows, places that you can't see, coming through the melody. When the night bird sings, love is a wild thing. Yeah, I guess that's probably the chorus.
That sounds like the chorus.
But either way, I like that first little bit where it's like running like a river trying to find the ocean, flower in the concrete. Very poetic.
Yeah.
Very poetic. Nothing too original, but very poetic. And
most definitely.
I like poetry. So, next song, Space Cowboy. I think this is another song that we've talked about before where definitely not like my favorite or anything, but I remember when we did this, when we recorded last time, you had said that you kind of have an appreciation on the play of words.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just the way, like, because, the song is titled Space Cowboy. There's no punctuation in there.
Nope.
But, like, if you listen to the song, it's, I'm going to give you your space, comma, cowboy. So you're supposed to take a breath between space and cowboy.
Yeah.
Because she's addressing somebody.
Yeah, she definitely makes that clear, too, in the lyrics that she's kind of giving this person whatever it is, like,
yeah, I mean,
you go do you, boo.
She says, like, I'll give you your space cowboy, like, I'm not going to fence you in. Mm-hmm. And it talks about him driving off in his Durango, which is a very specific truck, but
Silverado.
Is it Silverado?
Yep. Go on your ride away in your Silverado.
Oh, some car freak is going to be real mad that I got fucking models and stuff mixed up. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't care.
Don't give a fuck.
It's a car,
right?
Or a truck.
If it gets me to point A to point B,
yeah,
I'm okay with that. That's all I need. Now,
Wonder Woman, is that next?
Nope. Happy and Sad.
Happy and Sad. Oh, shit.
This is a song I didn't really care for. It was.
This was the one that was super country.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't like, Oh What a World went really modern.
Yep.
And this one thrust right into country.
Yep.
And I'm not about that life.
Yeah. I mean, it just, in general, I didn't really care for the song. I don't. The lyrics.
Lyrically, it's not even that impressive, I don't think.
Not really. But it does have like that point of, I think she's talking about her career. We've talked about this before. I think she's not really talking about anybody particular as much as maybe a career where she's getting the both worlds where she's sad and she's happy, and she uses those and different things kind of, as an artist.
Sure.
It's kind of how I got to it, but I just didn't care for the melody or the tune of the song itself.
Yeah, I can understand that.
It just was something I didn't click too much with. Then we have Velvet Elvis, which we both agreed that we enjoyed.
We both thoroughly enjoyed that song.
It's
my favorite song on the album.
Yep, a lot more upbeat, definitely more like 90s feel to it, 90s modern feel, like a 90s pop.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And it was catchy. Lyrically, it was pretty good. She's comparing this person that she's falling for to Velvet Elvis. And
Which I mean, I remember like Elvis, like velvet, like paintings, like of Elvis, and it screams like, I remember it in like somebody's trailer, like that I was like visiting. So like to me, it just screams trailer park.
Well, she does have an album called
same trailer, different park.
Yep.
Which is that her first album?
I don't know. Maybe. I would have to look at that.
Someday we'll figure that out.
But it's still a catchy tune. It's good. Yeah. It's upbeat. Like I said, very 90s modern pop kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I use the term modern just because like you have pop country, which you can definitely tell it's a country song in pop, but I'm bringing the idea that she's more of a modern pop with some country influences and stuff.
Most definitely.
So stop yawning here.
I'm sorry. I'm trying not to.
10. Track 10, Wonder Woman. Wasn't a big fan.
Yeah, it was just... there was just nothing about this song that was entertaining or... Lyrically, it was kind of bleh.
Yeah, she's pretty much saying lyrically that don't put me on a pedestal. Don't have high expectations of me. I'm not going to be that person that you seem to fantasize about. I'm not your Wonder Woman. I'm like, hey, I give you props for that.
That's a fair message, but I mean, I don't feel like you need to tell people that. They're going to assume that. I think a lot of people are going to do that on their own.
Yeah. Yep. It definitely reminded me of Jack Quaid and Plus One.
Yeah.
So.
Such a bitch.
Oh, God. Track 11, High Horse. Once again, wasn't really a song I cared for that much.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad. I remember it being...
This is very country pop.
Yeah. And I think lyrically I kind of liked it because she's pretty much just saying... She's talking about an asshole.
Yeah.
She's bluntly saying...
I think at the beginning she's like, you think you're John Wayne?
Yep. Oh, I bet you think you're John Wayne showing up and shooting down everybody. You're classic and the wrong way. And we all know the end of that story.
Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely talking about some dude she fucking doesn't like.
Yeah, I mean, she straight out says, because everyone knows someone who kills the buzz every time they open up their mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely talking about some high on this pedestal, or high horse, obviously.
Yeah.
That's the name of the song. But once again, musically,
Right.
I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was definitely not one of my favorites on the album by any means. Next song, title track, Golden Hour. Not a bad tune.
This was fine.
Yep, very mellow. Yeah. Very kind of chilled. Definitely sounded like a coffee house.
Yeah.
Definitely
soundtrack. Something you could play in the background and like be fine with.
Yep. Pretty much saying like whoever she's falling in love with, this person that's kind of come into her life, has caught her at the right moment, or time was perfect because it was golden hour. Now, last time, I'm going to do it again, Aram. So golden hour, if you're unfamiliar with golden hour, photographers and videographers and filmmakers and stuff like that use golden hour to really kind of as a specialty. So it's between it's like dusk and dawn are the times that you want to go out and shoot out in nature, because it casts a perfect diffusion, perfect filter, and you get some of the most beautiful, glorious shots without having to put extra gear or extra lenses or extra filters on your lenses to make that shot look good. Everything in golden hour turns out beautiful. And so she's using that metaphorically to say, this is the perfect moment. Everything is beautiful and done very well lyrically.
Yeah.
So I definitely like it. Next album. Or next song.
Album.
Next song.
Rainbow.
Nice.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Nice song.
It's a slower song, piano song.
I remember I first heard it when it was on The Masked Singer. One of the contestants in Thingamajig, I think it was what he was called. He did it. I thought he did a wonderful job with it personally, and I didn't realize it was, a song by her, but I liked it.
Yep. Yeah. No, it was kind of a lot of albums like to end their albums with like a softer acoustic song or something like that, and she was really no different.
Dracula Logic does it all the time.
Oh my God, beautiful songs too.
Yep.
Like they're the only songs I like off of their stuff, but they go into this hardcore kind of growly, grungy, raw kind of
they're very
music.
Aggressive, and then when they end on a song that's
so beautiful,
that's
acoustic and beautiful,
and I think at least one of them is very haunting.
Yeah, nope, I agree. And it's like three albums I think that they had. Each song ended with a nice acoustic, beautiful song.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's veering off topic again.
Yep. So
that is Golden Hour by Kacey Musgraves. Is it
overall,
Musgrave or Musgraves?
Musgraves.
Is it? Okay. Can't remember if there was an S at the end. Overall, it's a fine album. I mean, I didn't hate it as much as I worried I would.
Yep. If I was to give it a star rating, between 1 and 5, I'd definitely give it a good solid 4.
Sure.
4.5 even. Like I enjoyed it. I listened to it quite a bit, like 6 or 7 times, and it was definitely an album I enjoyed and wouldn't mind having on in the background when I'm like reading or writing or doing chores or something. So I definitely dug it.
I'd at least give it a 3 just because I was much more pleasantly surprised by it than I expected.
Yep.
So yeah, I definitely at least give it a 3.
For sure.
It's definitely not something I'm gonna go out of my way to listen to. But I said that already. Like it's not whatever. But
yep. All right. Well, moving on to our concept albums. I feel like we can probably go through this fairly quick because, well, we've already done this.
I was like, yeah, we've got practice at this point. So,
Aram, I will let you go first again.
Well, I think the first one we'll just go right back in order, I guess, the way we did last time, is A Perfect Circle's 13th Step, and I know that's on both of our lists.
Yep.
It was released in 2003, and
September 16th, 2003.
I only had the year. I didn't have the exact date. I'm sorry.
It's their second studio album.
Yes, it is.
Well, they're also one of those bands because Maynard goes and does Tool stuff too in between. It's like a 3 year.
Maynard does so many things in between albums.
It's true. They take like 3 years apart between each album pretty much. So
yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's their second studio album. Came out right after I graduated from high school.
Yeah.
I saw them after this album came out in the Fargo Civic Center, which was not an awesome venue, but they were fine. They put on a good show. But it's a concept album about according to the Wikipedia thing, it's different aspects and perspectives of addiction and the recovery from it.
Yep. Maynard himself hasn't had any addiction problems, but this is the sign of a true artist.
Yep.
Because he's able to take perspective from those around him and for that matter, is a song about the version of like the drug itself. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's an artist right there. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where if you didn't know what the album was about, I don't think I would have picked it up. I have a hard time with deciphering Maynard's lyrics.
Yeah, he's very deep and he's very layered when it comes to that sort of stuff. I would say that I was not, when it came out, I probably wasn't mature enough to grasp it as a concept album. I just took it as an album. Yeah. If
I was to listen to it now, I probably could figure
definitely.
It out.
Like listening to it now, and like I think the past couple of years, there's a couple songs of like, oh man, that kind of feels like this, and like knowing what I do about, Alcoholics or Narcotics Anonymous and the 12 steps themselves, like bits and pieces I started to put together and like go, oh yeah, I get it now. And then when I read that it was actually supposed to be all about addiction and the aspects of it and recovery, and I was like, okay, I get it.
I totally see it now.
Yeah,
I definitely wasn't aware that it was different perspectives too.
Right.
I wouldn't have gotten that at all. Even if I knew it was about drug addiction or addiction itself, I probably would never have been able to piece together that he was talking about different perspectives from all sides.
Right. No, so, I wouldn't have either. But there's very few people that I think could really, without any problems, be able to fully grasp what Maynard is doing at any point in time.
I know that the song The Outsider was about the perspective of watching somebody, like a friend, watching another friend go through this addiction, struggling with it, and then this friend not really grasping and understanding the complexity and the hardship that addiction takes on a person, and going, well, you should just kind of shrug it off. Get over it, man.
Grow up.
That like learning about that, I was like, wow, that totally that's some good shit right there. And then Weak and Powerless, obviously, this right there, the title.
Well, that's all about I believe the first step, which is just admitting that you're powerless over your own addiction.
Admitting you have a problem. And,
that's all that is. And
I mean, the title of the album, 13 Steps, takes that AA, the alcohol,
the 12 steps,
12-step problem, and then the 13th step was that idea, I think, about just
falling back into
into
like it's a cycle.
Yep.
Yeah.
unfortunately, to those who do have that addiction problem and have come through recovery, like, more props to you, because I mean, I've never battled with addiction necessarily myself, but I can only imagine it being extremely tough, because I just look at the simplest thing where, like, cravings, where if I don't eat, like, I have craving for a cookie, and all of a sudden this craving just develops. I want a fucking cookie and I want it now. Right. I can only imagine that if you're actually an addict, if you're actually addicted to something so much worse than a goddamn cookie, I mean, that's not a great comparison. It's just the only thing I can think of to go. I think I can.
I don't think it's
understand.
A terrible comparison. I think because I think it's probably the concept of being an addict, but like it's like almost like 100 times fold.
Yeah. Yep.
Like
it's just the best way I can kind of try to understand.
I mean, there's obviously more aspects to it, but like, that's a pretty decent like base understanding of it, I think.
And that's all I can get.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was definitely the album that we both had on our list. So I'm going to take it one step further and go, I had their third studio album, Emotiv.
Right.
So A Perfect Circle's Emotiv album that came out November 1st, 2004. So it actually didn't take as long compared to the first album to the second album. This is their third studio album, and the album is pretty much primarily a collective of anti-war cover songs. So the whole album is cover songs, but they were more like anti-political and anti-war. So they found songs that they decided to cover and make their own style. Amazingly done, too. Yeah. And they made it their own, and that's definitely what they're talking about. I know Maynard was very anti-Bush when this came out. It was right around the Bush administration, and he was very anti-Bush because we were going to war. We're still in war. We're still doing the whole Iraq war. And he was very vocal about how much he disagrees with the reasoning we were there, all the decisions that were being made. I mean, he was very vocal about it. I stay out of politics, but I definitely understand.
Do my best to do the same thing.
Yep, I definitely understand where he was coming from. Maynard at least was coming from.
Right.
But he's not afraid to speak his opinions or speak his thoughts either.
That's true.
He's been known to be quite the asshole. But
at least doesn't mince words, which is admirable at times, but it can definitely get him into trouble sometimes.
Yeah. There definitely are a couple tracks on this album that I absolutely love. The first track on the album, called Annihilation, it is a hauntingly beautiful song. And it has this like Tinker Toy, xylophone sound in the back, and then it's got Maynard like whispering through the entire song, and it's really eerie and haunting, but it's good. It's well done. Right and then obviously my favorite song on the album is Passive, which was on the soundtrack to Constantine. When he was entering the club, Papa Midnight's club. The song was playing in the background. And
Papa Midnight, I forgot about it. Isn't that Idris Elba?
No.
It's
I can't ever pronounce his name, but it's the guy that was in he was in Never Back Down. He was in Gladiator.
Yes.
He's the main slave in Gladiator. I can't ever pronounce his name.
I'm not gonna do it right. No, I'm not gonna try.
He's in Blood Diamond.
Yep.
Super badass actor.
Oh yeah, great actor.
I've always liked him. But Maynard actually wrote that song with Trent Reznor in a kind of super group called Tapeworm that never recorded a single song, never went to studio for anything, but it was just a super group over the years that had members flying in and out.
Yeah.
And probably because, like we talked about, nobody could probably work with Trent Reznor. He's such a control freak. But that was one of the songs that he took, and it's a beautiful song. I love it. And then they did the biggest justice I think that you could do for any Beatles fan is they covered John Lennon's Imagine. Yeah. And it is dark and beautiful. Such a beautiful song. It's a great song to begin with. Very political, but definitely was one of those songs when they covered, they did a great job making it their own, not taking anything away from it, and I definitely appreciate that and like it.
Yeah.
So that was my album. So
all right. So my next album is Ziltoid the Omniscient, which is by Devin Townsend. It was released on May 21st, 2007. There, I got the full date on that one for you.
Good job.
And so basically, Devin wrote this album he wanted to do the whole thing on his own. And so he wrote this album about an extraterrestrial called Ziltoid coming from the planet Ziltoidia 9. And Ziltoid travels to Earth in search of your universe's ultimate cup of coffee.
Which I think is great.
A cup of coffee is delivered to him, and he is promptly appalled by its taste, declaring it fetid, and summons the Ziltoidian warlords to attack Earth, facing the full might of Earth's army. Townsend describes the album as a mix between Strapping Young Lad and the Devin Townsend Project, with the storyline that of Punky Brewster's Cooked on Phonics. Strapping Young Lad, Devin Townsend Project, and Punky Brewster are all Devin Townsend bands. So, like, that's all... It's an amalgamation of his work. But yeah, he did all the work by himself.
I mean, he's a super fucking talented guy to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's not a shocker there.
Yeah, that was like the first time I think he did it all by himself, where like he didn't have any other musicians come in, and like he just did it to show that show himself, not even anyone else. He did it to show himself
that he can do it.
That I can do it.
And then he decided to do a story.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just the kind of guy like Devin is. Like Devin's kind of a funny guy.
Yeah,
like he's got kind of an imagination of that.
Well, he's
that sort of
consistently doing something too.
Yeah,
he can't not do something, because when he stopped doing music for a while, he wrote a book.
Yeah, well, and I think part of it now, at least, he's sober and stuff like that. So I think he does it to maintain sobriety.
It's fair.
Which
That's
fair. If it works,
idle hands
it works.
is the devil's playground.
That's right.
I think I stole that from Idle Hands.
I mean, that's not where
No, I stole it from Idle Hands.
I wanted to make sure that like we were both on the same page. That's not where that line came from.
But it's probably where I
that's
like
where,
I said,
where a lot of guys heard it, yeah.
It made the most impact. So,
but yeah, you're up.
Mine? Sweet.
Yeah.
Next album is going to be Atlanticism, which is by Death Cab for Cutie. I love Death Cab for Cutie. They're an alternative indie rock band. One of those bands where they've been around since like the late 90s, like 97, I think, like that. Something like that.
Sounds about right.
And this album is their fourth studio album, so they kind of took quite a bit of time. But it came out in 2003, October 7th, 2003. Their singles off this album was The New Year, The Sound of Settling, Title, and Registration. But I probably haven't heard anything about these guys when it came out or anything. Right. It wasn't until recently. Because I kind of went on like this whole Death Cab for Cutie kick.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I still love them. And it all started with, I first heard Soul Meets Body, and I was like, oh, that's a great song. I really liked it. And then I heard I Will Follow You Into the Dark, which is such a haunting and beautiful acoustic song.
Yeah.
And after that, I just was like, yep, pretty obsessed with Death Cab for Cutie. They're definitely one of those bands where I love to just put on in background music and listen to them, because they're so mellow, but they have some range, but they're not boring. I even bought 2 of their vinyl albums because they sound great on vinyl. That warmth that vinyl brings is perfect for their music. So I know Adam Brody. He was in like Jennifer's Body. He was in Grind. He was in The OC.
Yep.
His favorite band is Death Cab for Cutie and like Bright Eyes, and I don't know how I know that. I just do. So anyway, the album. The concept of the album was about longing to be loved and the separation and isolation that kind of comes together. So Ben Gibbard he's the singer. He was at an airport and he was watching these people say goodbye to each other. And it just kind of clicked to him like they may never ever see each other again. Like this could be the last time that they see, touch, talk, and given where he was at in an airport, going across seas, he uses the geographical ocean for a metaphor. And the way that he uses it is actually pretty interesting, because he's saying that the distance apart could be that it's that whole longing, I wish you were here, but you're so far apart.
Yeah.
And yet the isolation of the ocean itself is there as well. And that's kind of how you could feel. You could be in the middle of the ocean and still feel, miles and miles away.
Yeah.
Even though you could be halfway there to that love. You're still isolated. You're still alone. So it's kind of a sadder, darker album, but super good. And I think that I really liked the idea of kind of that using the ocean as a big giant metaphor.
Yeah.
So, but that's all I got to say about that one.
Right on. Then I think my next one is going to be Nightfall in Middle Earth by Blind Guardian, which was released in 1998. April 28th, 1998. Which
a long time ago.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. I think this is like I think at this point this might be like their fourth or fifth album. But so it's basically them retelling the Silmarillion, which is a book by Tolkien a book of tales from the first age of Middle Earth, recounting the War of the Jewels. I don't know. I've never read the Silmarillion, so I don't know that reference per se. But
nope.
I'm sure if I wanted to like dive into Wikipedia, I probably could.
We've talked about that book particularly.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
series.
super dense and very hard to like follow per se. But yeah, I enjoy Blind Guardian in general. I think we talked the last time, but the Blind Guardian and Iced Earth are kind of put together in a group, and they actually formed a super group called Demons and Wizards. Iced Earth I've never listened to Iced Earth, so I didn't put any of their shit on there, but Iced Earth, another one, has a bunch of concept albums.
Yep. I've listened to Iced Earth before.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a little too like 80s metal for me, but they're not bad.
They have one album that's just based on Spawn.
Which you told me about that. I thought that was badass. It's called the Dark Saga
or something like that.
That's badass. I really want to listen to it just because I like Spawn.
Yeah.
Spawn's badass.
But like, so, I mean, in each of the songs on this album are referencing a point in the book. Like, my favorite song, is called Nightfall, and I don't know the characters in these books, but this is the reference point. It just says, Fëanor and his 7 sons mourn the destruction wrought by Morgoth, including the slaying of Finwë and Fëanor's father, and swears to get revenge on him in spite of Valor's disapproval. That's the thrust of that whole song. That's one section of the book.
Yeah, which never read the book, so
yeah. And there's other ones that Blood Tears is another good one. Time Stands Still, and then in parentheses it says At the Iron Hill, which I assume is about a battle of some kind. Oh, it's about a duel. Yeah,
same thing.
Yeah. But yeah, so I just think, I don't know, they're the only band I've ever bought a live album from.
Yeah, you told me that, yep.
It was a 2-disc set, actually, so it was a pretty lengthy concert. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. It's a concept album, in its truest form. It's all about the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. There's no hiding behind it.
Yeah, there's no
metaphors
there's
or
no deeper meaning.
Yep.
And it's literally just them telling this. And they do all sorts of stuff like that. They literally have just a song called The Lord of the Rings, which is a telling of The Lord of the Rings musically.
Yep. Which is cool. Yeah. I mean, the whole reason why we're doing concept art or albums is because it's. I think you said it. You always think they're fascinating, but just to see what people can really bring up.
Yep.
And tell the story through music too, like an actual story. Especially if they take it from some kind of literature, some kind of book. then if you're familiar with the book, you might be able to piece together certain things. Like most people are familiar with, Lord of the Rings, and I know that Led Zeppelin has a couple songs that they've sung about Lord of the Rings, and so it's when you hear those things, you kind of go, "Oh, I know that." It's almost like you're a part of this special club,
right?
It makes you feel good, but yeah, I think that's kind of cool. I definitely want to listen to that Spawn.
Yeah,
I want to see how badass it is.
All right, you're up, sir.
So, the next concept album that I'm going to talk about is from one of my favorite bands as well, that I've talked about plenty of times, is Blue October, and their album Any Man in America. This was released August 11, 2011, and it's their 6th studio album. And the singles off this was The Chills, The Feel Again, Stay, and The Worried List. So I've mentioned about Blue October. I've actually mentioned about this album before in a couple songs before in other podcasts, but this was a album. It was a dark and deep and an emotional ride of an album. And it's all his reflection and him kind of going through emotions about his horrible, pretty much defeating divorce from his ex-wife and child custody. And I think I mentioned this before as well, but his ex-wife had an affair while he was out doing his thing, and she blamed him for it and said, "You failed as a father and a husband, and because you were out there living your dream." And then he kind of threw it in her face going, "Well, how do you think you have this house that you lived in and all this stuff?" And he uses that in the lyrics. But anyway, the one song that always stood out to me is because personally I think it's probably one of the most like really emotionally like empathetic songs. Like you really feel, like you really understand where his mindset was called The Flight.
Yeah.
The Lincoln to Minneapolis. The whole song is about him at an airport, and he just found out that his wife had an affair, and he blacked out and he lost his mind, and he was getting ready to go kill this person. He was getting ready to get on a plane and go kill these two. He was going to kill him
to some degree.
Yep, and he straight out said, "I'm getting ready to kill, man." Like, but he had some kind of sense to turn himself in and said, "I need help. Otherwise, I'm going to do this."
Yeah.
He was then court ordered to, because of this incident, he had a mental breakdown in an airport. And because of this incident, he was required by the court to check himself into an insane asylum. And he spent quite a while in there in recovering and dealing with his
various issues.
Yeah, so he's known for having bipolar disorder, depression, and addiction. And those three are not a good combination.
No.
So,
that's a very terrible cocktail.
And for most of his life, he's been battling with that. And the song Hate Me says a lot because it pretty much says what he's done to his mother and how his mother deserves a better son than what he's provided. And this album is really no different than what Justin has provided. It's a fantastic album, very emotional, very everywhere. He kind of definitely is getting some expressive relief on this album. This is like his therapeutic session right here. This is his therapy. He's getting this shit out.
Yeah.
And he does it well, very well. I've always had an appreciation for Justin and how his writing is and his singing too, because he sings with his emotions. He knows how to really
I can
feel the dynamic, because he'll go into a soft melody and just next thing you know, he's angry and screaming, and it's so appropriate. He knows how to make it work in everything he does. So, I don't. It's a great album if you really want to hear some shit. So, that's what I got for that.
Right. Before I get into the really deep-seated stuff, the next album I'm going to talk about is The Warp Riders by The Sword, which is a concept album. It was based on a short story that the lead singer wrote. I was reading the Wikipedia thing. It says, First, it says, concept of a science fiction maelstrom put to the storming, relentless riffage. Oh, this is like the blurb that the band released, so sorry, I got into that for a moment.
It's okay. We forgive you.
So, Warp Riders tells the tale of Aerith, an archer banished from his tribe on the planet Acheron, a hard-scrabble planet that has undergone a tidal lock, which has caused one side to be scorched by 3 suns, and the other enshrouded in perpetual darkness.
That sounds like a terrible place to live.
It is the background to a tale of strife and fantasy, the battle between pure good and pure evil. How it's told through the dueling lead guitar... Oh, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so... He basically took a lot of, like, different inspirations, like, you know, the Legend of Atlantis, old heavy metal magazines. And then he also says he took like the films of René Laloux, who I don't know, a French animator and film director, A Childhood Dream, and The Teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda, to name a few.
Interesting. That's quite the influence.
Yeah, so I mean, it's all mixed up. The title track is probably the best one for me. It wasn't one of the singles, which I didn't realize, but the Warp Riders is probably the best song on there. But Tres Brujas, which is 3 witches in Spanish, is another good track.
Interesting.
I always found the sword kind of interesting because the way they sound versus what they actually play about is very interesting.
Kind of different. It's almost an opposite.
Yeah, because they play almost very sludgy, sort of like, almost like you wouldn't be surprised to hear
new
like
rock metal.
Yeah, and then they sing about like you know, giants and swords and things like that.
Yep.
Oh, I find them interesting. I probably didn't do it as much justice as I could have, but it's worth a listen.
I know the sword. I never really gave him a shot, to be honest. But nothing that really stood out to me that I heard. I know they had a song on Guitar Hero, and that song never.
And that was like their first single, and it's not my favorite song by them. They've definitely matured as they've gotten older, like, and gone on. Twilight Sunrise is a newer song of theirs that I enjoy off of Used Future. I think that's their newest album, but I think they just released a couple singles, so they're probably putting out another one soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not something I listen to a ton of, but I like some of their music, so I figured I'd throw them on here. Because it was another one where it was a legit concept, and I thought it was interesting that he based it off of a short story that he wrote.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I would actually like to read that short story.
Yeah, so would I. I have to find where it is at some point.
It definitely... I mean, that sounds like a horrible place to live. 3 suns.
Yeah.
So one side of the place is consumed in all darkness, and the other is blazing, burnt, and God, it sounds horrible. Yeah. I should give him a shot.
I mean, it's worth a try. I mean,
can't say I don't like him.
Right, exactly. Like I say, Freya, which is the one that was on Guitar Hero, is not... It was their first single, so it was what it was, but it wasn't anything that I really enjoyed.
Can't really define their music because of that one song.
That was, and like it was their first outing, like it was off their first album, and so like they've definitely matured and like changed to some degree. They're a lot more clear now. They're not as like heavy into like the distortion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll give them a shot.
Yeah.
Especially if you say that they're not too bad.
I don't think they're awful. I think they're worth...
I'll give you a shot. I mean, I know that we do have different tastes and stuff, but it doesn't mean I won't give it a shot. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, well,
somebody's here.
Probably Kaylee.
Your turn.
So the next album I'm going to talk about is definitely, blatantly a concept album.
Yeah.
But it's an amazingly dark and beautiful album, and it is the Heroine Diaries soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
By 6am. Released August 21st, 2007. It's their first studio album, and the singles off this album was Life is Beautiful, Pray for Me, Tomorrow, and Accidents Can Happen. So this album, quick story, I got this album on a road trip down to Des Moines, and I was wanting some new music, and somebody had told me, oh, just pick up this album. It's super good. You'll like it. So I trusted him, and they weren't wrong. I picked this album up, and I picked up Five Finger Death Punch's first album, and I listened to those on my way down to Iowa. And the first track on this album, called Xmas to Hell, is an intro. And it's Nikki Sixx talking from an entry of one of his diaries, and it's a big just fucking slap in the face. Like right away, you're just like, ugh. It makes you definitely not want to do drugs. So the concept of this album is all about Nikki Sixx, who is the bassist and the forming leader and primary songwriter of Motley Crue.
Yep.
So he's the one who formed the band, started the band, and wrote 90% of the songs.
So it's his fault,
I guess. But he was also the wild card. He was the wild man. He was the guy who, in the band, I mean, they were a pretty rough band to begin with. Like, amazing that none of them died and stayed dead.
Right, no shit.
But Nikki Sixx was the one who took everything to the extreme. He usually started it and tried to end it, or if anything, he definitely started everything. He was the asshole. He was the druggie. He was all this shit. Mm-hmm. And he was addicted to heroin. During this discourse of using heroin, he was apparently writing journals. And he, as a now recovering sober for several years, he was like cleaning out his attic one day and found all these journals up there, and he started reading through them, and he was compelled to type them up and kind of have some closure. He said he never really felt like he had some closure. He never really got past it and left it, that in a chapter of his life behind him.
Yeah.
So he decided he was going to type them up and kind of created this manual, this kind of memoir per se of his time doing drugs. But he was writing while he was on heroin, while he was in the midst of his high. He would write journal stuff. So I read the heroin diary, and it's fucking interesting.
Yeah.
And because it's his perspective, because it's him writing about himself, it's interesting on what he saw and what he felt and things like that. And the fact that he was, I guess, cognitive enough to actually write, whether it was as coherent, there, neither there here. It was just very interesting to hear about this guy talking about his experiences on drugs for 20 years or whatever. But what was the drastic thing about this that made it his story unique was he died twice. He's technically died twice. Mm-hmm. And I think the second time he was dead for like 2 or 3 minutes or something like that. So he's pronounced dead, and then he came back somehow.
Jeez.
And that was kind of when he decided, hey, I need to change my life around. He had a little more appreciation for life after that, and then he, did more with his life after that. And he started 6 a.m. and stuff. But the cool thing about this was when he found these diaries and he decided to type it up, is he wasn't planning on doing anything with them.
Yeah.
He brought him to a buddy who's actually the singer of 6 a.m.
Oh, okay.
And he kind of was like, hey, can you read this for me and whatever? And just to kind of, I guess, have some acknowledgement that he did something with it, I guess. And his buddy's like, so when's the movie coming out? I was like, there's no movie. It's like, what? It's like, this is a movie waiting to happen. And he's like, well, let's do something better. So the album is the Heroine Diaries soundtrack. The book is called The Heroine Diaries, A Year in the Life of a Shattered Rock Star. The first time I've ever heard of a soundtrack to a book. But it is so good.
Interesting. And
definitely worth listening to, definitely worth reading as well. And you definitely can piece together some of the lyrics and some of the things that are being said in the album from the book, especially the intro. I think he takes it right from one of his journals, like journal entries.
Really?
and I think that right there was when I found that out. I'm like, that's enough to be a big slap in the face. So,
Damn.
So yeah, that was my.
Right
that's
on.
my. I don't know, fifth album, I guess.
Yeah, some of those lines. We're up there. So I think the next. And the last two that I have are like they have to encompass more than one album, so I'm going to do the band themselves. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Mastodon. Mastodon, their first 4 albums were concept albums, in so much they all dealt with an element. There was Remission was fire, Leviathan was water, Blood Mountain was earth, and Crack the Sky was air or ether. And so, but they also have other themes to them as well. Like Leviathan actually was also a retelling of Moby Dick.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Or at least by the name.
Yeah. And then Blood Mountain is literally a story of traveling up this mountain, and each track has certain things that they encounter, like Colony of Birchmen, which is about seeing tree people. Things of that nature. And then there's also like Crack the Sky is a much weirder concept album, in so much as like it deals with like astral projection and like Tsarist Russia. So
interesting.
I was just reading the basic premise of the thing, and so there's a paraplegic, and the only way that he can go anywhere is if he astral travels. He goes out of his body into outer space, and a bit like Icarus, he goes too close to the sun, burning off the golden umbilical cord that is attached to his solar plexus. So he's in outer space and he's lost. He gets sucked into a wormhole. He ends up in the spirit realm, and he talks to spirits, telling them that he is not really dead. So they send him to a Russian cult. They use him in a divination, and they find out his problem. And they decide they're going to help him, and they put his soul into Rasputin's body. And Rasputin goes to usurp the Tsar, and he is murdered. So the 2 souls fly out of Rasputin's body through the crack in the sky, and Rasputin is the wise man that's trying to lead the child home to his body, because his parents have discovered him by now and think that he is dead. Rasputin needs to get him back into his body before it's too late, but they end up running into the devil along the way, and the devil tries to steal their souls and bring them down.
That's a fucking story.
Like that's
kind of intense.
These guys are super intelligent. And
would you say that their music is kind of styled as like math metal?
No, that was Mudvayne we talked about.
Oh,
with math metal. I think I heard them referred to as math metal at some point.
Either way, these guys are super
yeah
intelligent dudes. Yeah, didn't you say one of them's from Harvard, or maybe somebody told me that one of them went to school with Harvard, or maybe Juilliard. I don't. I feel like I'm getting all mixed up with somebody else. But
that has to be something I read into. I couldn't tell you offhand.
Yeah, we went and seen them with Clutch.
Yep. We saw them with Clutch. Clutch actually, the lead singer of Clutch, Neil Fallon, is on one of my favorite songs by Mastodon, which is off Leviathan. It's called Blood and Thunder.
Actually, did they play that?
I think they did, but Neil didn't come out for it. Like
really? Oh, I thought maybe they did, but
or no, I don't think they got that far back in their catalog at that point. I think because this is like right after Once More Around the Sun came out, so they still had. This was Once More Around the Sun is like their 6th album. Yeah. So they had plenty of fucking material to work with for 2 or 3 albums.
It was a long time ago too. I don't really remember too much of the show anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, so like these guys are super intelligent. And there's always hidden meanings. Like they've gotten away from concept albums for a while. Like Once More Around the Sun and The Hunter were both not concept albums. Emperor of Sand ended up being a concept album. They wrote about a guy who's handed a death sentence in the desert, and then that had to do with a lot of the fact that they had friends or family members that died of cancer.
Yep.
So they got back
some personal meaning behind
it. It's almost like they do it for a therapy's sake. They tell a story and kind of get out their feelings that way.
That's what music is, man. It's what art is.
Exactly.
Art and a whole.
But yeah, so that's That's where I'll stop on that one. What do you got?
Well, I think I'm going to quickly do two of them.
Sure.
Because one of them, I'm not actually sure if it's a concept album, but I know that when I first got it, it seemed like it was. But I'm going to do one I actually have written down. So 30 Seconds to Mars, which I've talked about plenty of times before.
Yeah.
Big 30 Seconds to Mars fan. Big Jared Leto fan. Their first album, which is self-titled, it was released August 27, 2002. I bought this album as soon as it came out. It's their first studio album, and their singles was Capricorn, A Brand New Name, and Edge of the Earth. So when I first heard Capricorn, I'm like, oh, I love this song. Instantly, I was like, I dig it, I like it, and I want to get the album. And I listened to the album, and I was pretty obsessed with the album for a while. Yeah. It came out. Super interesting, unique. They have a electronic rock sound to them, and they do it very, very well, too. But their sound, their mood to it has this very spacey, operatic, kind of spacey electronic rock sound to them.
Yeah.
And when I use the term operatic, I don't really mean like an opera sound as much as it's like a story that you would feel like an actual opera to the music. That's exactly what they're doing. They're telling
Opera's
stories.
The original concept album, really.
It really is. Yep. And their concept is about reflection and catharsis and like the idea of self-developing and ascension or ascending to something more and pure to oneself. It gets very spiritual. And the reason, and with that whole spacey kind of feel that they have through their music, it totally comes together very well. And I love it. I dig it. It's still one of my favorite albums of theirs. And then they went and did A Brand New Name, or not Brand New Name, they did A Beautiful Lie, which was their second album, which totally different sound. Yeah. Each album, they just keep changing their sounds, entirely different from the last. And I respect that.
Yeah.
I definitely respect that. They're trying to really say, hey, we can do more than just this.
Right.
So, but yeah, the other one I wanted to do was, it was one that just came to me. And I remember it being very, very unique. And that was Fair to Midland. And the album, their first album, which I'm talking about, is Fables from a Mayfly. What I tell you three times is true. Yeah. And this album may not necessarily be a concept album that I'm aware of, but each song in there is a fable story of some sort. I don't know if it's a real fable story, like something you would hear, but it has, each song is a story that they're telling as if it's a fable. And the music is super unique. They were very unique.
I think they were the first band to get signed to Surge's label.
Maybe. The label is Republic Records.
Oh.
So I don't know.
They're on Surgical Strike. Oh, well.
Yeah, but the album, their sound to me was very unique because they were like well, it says here, and this is actually exactly what I think: progressive rock, art rock, alternative metal, folk metal, and new prog.
Oh yeah,
totally fits.
Any one of those fits.
Yep. And my first thought is like it's like folk metal because it is very folky. They're telling folk stories, and then they just put it behind.
Some of the, I feel like they use some instruments that are pretty folky too. At least in there. Like I don't think they play them like specifically, but that's.
Their first single, which is what I heard on the radio, which made me really like them, was "Dance of the Manatee." Yeah, and it's not.
It's the only song I know by them.
Yeah, and the video was very unique, but it's pretty much about a giant coming in and like taking over this town, and these town villages folk people get sick of it, so they take this giant down, and that's like the choruses or something like that is like the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And it's such a unique song. Yeah. Such a good song too. Such a badass.
Oh yeah, it's a really good song, and it's definitely one that like you never mistake it for someone else.
No,
like it can't be someone else's work.
Very unique sound. And I mean, this album came out in 2007. I remember picking it up, going, "God, this is." I still have the album, but it was good. Yeah, it was unique. It was original, and it was good. So that's all I have. I'm washing my hands. I'm done.
All right, well, I'll go over the last thing I got, and I'll just glaze over it real quick. So Coheed and Cambria do all their albums except for one. The album The Color Before the Sun is a chapter from this overarching story called the Amory Wars, which is... So yeah, it says each of Coheed and Cambria's studio albums, with the exception of Color Before the Sun, tells a chapter in the saga originally narrated by Sanchez's lyrics. It's actually, now if I'm reading right, it's a series of science fiction comic books and novels created by the singer and published by Evil Inc. Comics.
Evil Inc. Comics. Yeah. Sounds kind of like a badass name.
The name also refers to the fictional conflict at the center of the story, which is told across the published works and is also the primary focus of most of the band's music. So, like, every album is a chapter from the story.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that I thought it was really interesting, the fact that he had to... he essentially, to tell a prequel to this story, had to go make his own band, like his side project band.
Yeah, he had more to say, but he couldn't do it with his band.
Yeah, because he's already telling this story with this band. He's like, I got to tell something else. I got to go do this other thing. So he had another band called the Prize Fighter Inferno, which is literally just him doing electronic music and telling a prequel story to the Amory Wars. So, and I've just...
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I've just recently kind of gotten into them, so... So yeah, I don't know. I think they're really interesting, and I think they're kind of cool to listen to.
What's up?
I'd go look at the Wikipedia page to get a better understanding, because there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go dive into it. We've already gone on long enough.
It's a very in-depth story for sure.
Yeah.
I never gave them a shot. "Welcome Home" was the only song that I absolutely loved that song because it had that cashmere feel.
Yeah.
I had a hard time though getting over his voice.
Yeah, you always had a problem with his vocals.
He's a talented fucking musician though. I mean, he's an amazing guitarist and definitely an amazing songwriter. But I had a hard time with his voice. It was very, very high pitched.
Yeah,
he could probably hit that high C and shatter some glass, I swear. But I can't use it against him, and I should give it a shot now that I'm older, especially.
Right.
Because I can tolerate a lot more, and I have more appreciation for it. But I've never disrespected them either. So, hell yeah.
Yeah, so I think next we'll
do our random shuffle and our random album. So, Aram, I'm going to leave it up to you. We already did our random album beforehand, but I kind of want to do a new one.
Yeah, you and me both.
Okay, we'll do that then. We'll do a new random album.
Let's tell people what we're getting away from, just to give them an understanding.
Last time when we recorded this, we did our random album, and it was a Vampire Weekend.
Contra was the name of the album.
Contra, yep. We both got 2 tracks into it before we're like, I don't know if we can do this. It was pretty bad. Pretty tough. I don't want to hate on it so much, but it's just not our music at all, and it was really tough to listen to.
Yeah.
A lot going on, and it was just kind of a headache. So I think this is the first time that we're going to wimp out, and I think we'll if it comes back later, fine, we'll do it.
Right. Yeah.
But
if somehow we end up with it again, or if we just decide to man up about it, but for right now we're gonna back out.
I also figured we'd do because I didn't write it down. I don't remember what song I had before. Yeah. We'd do a new random shuffle song. Yep. So sweet. All right. Well, let's do the random album first. I have it up already, and we'll just kind of hit shuffle. So
do it.
Bam. Okay. So the album is "When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go?" I don't know what the band is, though. Is that the name of the band, or is that the album? Oh, God. It's Billie Eilish.
Oh.
I hate Billie Eilish.
I'd rather listen to Vampire Weekend.
I'll leave it up to you, man. I feel like we should just do this one, and
Yeah, I mean, we already backed out of one.
Yeah, can't keep doing that.
Damn it.
All right, fine. So it's Billie Eilish. When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? That's the album that we'll have to listen to and talk about next time. All right, what's your first random shuffle?
My random shuffle is the song's called "I Feel Like I'm Drowning" by 2 Feet.
Yep, I know that song.
I heard it on the radio one day, and I was like, I kind of dug it, and yeah,
it's a little dark and ominous to it.
Yeah, it's just got a good beat to it. It's kind of catchy, but yeah, it's super slow and super dark.
It's also like the big hit single too.
That wouldn't surprise me.
It's like everywhere. It's a good song though. I like it. I actually was listening to it earlier today. Hell yeah. Mine is "You Should Be Sad" by Halsey. I love Halsey.
Yeah.
This song in particular too, I really, really freaking enjoyed. The other song on this album was "Graveyard," but I like this song. So it was one of those songs where I first fell in love with Halsey off of Badlands. Her whole album is very sassy, very angsty. It was unique, original, dark. I think they call them a dark pop, and definitely shows. But I really fell for her music on that album, and then I listened to her second album, and I had a couple good songs on there, and it wasn't horrible. And then I found out she came out with like this album later, and I really liked "To the Graveyard" or whatever, her first single off this album. And then I heard this song.
I probably heard it, and I don't.
Probably, it's everywhere. But
"You Should Be Sad" sounds more familiar.
I heard this song, and I'm like, she's pretty much saying like, whoever she's talking about, it's about love or relationships, like, you're kind of a piece of shit, and like, I'm glad I'm not with you, and you should be sad that we're not together because I'm better than this. And I'm like, fuck yeah, you tell that son of a bitch.
Kick his ass.
But that's what I have. So, guess we can wrap it up. So, a little bit of information here. Feel free, please, you can get a hold of us at B&B Banter Bros at Gmail, and it's B&B.
Yep.
So it's BAND Banter Bros at gmail.com. Shoot us an email. Anything they have to say.
BANDB Banter Bros?
So it's B and B.
Okay,
Yep.
You didn't say the second B that last time, so I want to make double sure. I didn't know if maybe you're doing the clever little play on words.
B&B Banter Bros. And you can also hit us up on Facebook, too. B&B Banter Bros on Facebook. And then we also have an Instagram account, so check that one out. It's
Instagrams.
Yep. It's B&B Banter Bros. So have to keep changing this shit around. But yeah, feel free to get a hold of us or check us out on any of those platforms. We would really love it. We'd like to be able to talk to you guys. So I'm Timothy Bennett.
I'm Aram Banyan.
And we'll catch you later.
Later.
Peace out.